back to the channel. Today I want to discuss something a little bit different than I typically talk about on the channel, and that's the most recent uh, school shooting that took place in Georgia, involving a 14-year-old. And unfortunately, four individuals lost their life, um, and apparently there was many injured as well. We don't know the extent because they usually don't cover that, unfortunately, but it could be anything from minor injury to a major injury that could affect their life for long term. So what we do know so far is that shot multiple individuals, and he was encountered by a school resource officer that actually um, was on the grounds at that time. So I do feel that if there would have not been an officer there or somebody armed, that there would have been a lot more lives lost that day. So good on that officer for engaging that individual and stopping the further loss of life. So um, from what we're being told is, as soon as the officer engaged him, he gave up, as many of these do. They either typically take their own life or they give up because let's be honest, they're cowards. And to do something like this to innocent people is, just, it's a cowardly act. There's no justification for it. I don't care if you were picked on or bullied, or your parents didn't love you enough, or whatever the bullshit reason may be. It's not an excuse to um, take innocent lives. So, you know, with that, so more on what we know so far is that we are finding out that it was an AR style rifle that was used. I know they emphasize on that in the media, of course, because ultimately that's what they want to do, is to take those weapons away from law-abiding people. Many of us have owned these weapons for many years and never had a single issue with that gun going out and doing harm to anybody, because it's not the weapon, it's the individual. And from my understanding is they knew that this kid was an issue. Apparently a year prior, he was being investigated for making comments on social media of shooting up a school, and was investigated, and don't believe there was any charges at that time. I do believe he was investigated by the FBI and the local sheriff's office at that time, but there was no charges. With that, just speaking from experience, that doesn't always mean, and I'm not covering for I'm not covering for these agencies at all, but sometimes with that is um, there's not enough to go off of to file charges. Typically, with that, you will present your findings to the prosecutor's office, and they will make a determination whether they wish to, pursue charges or whatnot. So, um, like I said, no way, shape, or form am I making excuses for them. It could have been an absolute failure, given what we've seen currently with the FBI and some of the other three-letter agencies. It very well could have been a failure on that, but hopefully time will tell. More information will come out, and we will learn more about it. So back to the individual. He, like I said, he did use an AR-15 style rifle. We are learning now that this was actually purchased by his father, and for a Christmas gift, apparently. If I'm reading the timeline right, it looks like he was investigated back in 23, and then afterwards, some months later, so he was investigated, I believe, in May of 23 for those threats that he allegedly made. And then that December is when his father had purchased an AR-15 for him for Christmas. So, as many of you know, Dad has been charged with multiple felonies at this point for his involvement, if you will, in the crime. One thing that's I'm trying to wrap my head around is the fact that you obviously knew that your child had an issue. You knew that he was accused of making threats, whether those were valid or not. And you should have some sort of knowledge of your kid's behavior changing, or odd behavior. Why in the world would you go buy him an AR? That makes absolutely no sense to me. And then obviously not secure it when you're not around, because he was able to get access to it and take it to the school. So that's one thing that I just haven't quite wrapped my head around yet. And I know people are going to disagree with me on that, as far as like, well, he had the right to do it, purchase this, purchase that, whatever. He shouldn't have. He shouldn't have bought his kid that, with knowing what he knew about that kid, um, you know, and and it comes to a point where parents need to be responsible for this shit. You know, we too many times will just blame the kid or whatever, and whatnot. And yeah, kid's to blame. I mean, he's 14. He's well aware that it's wrong to murder people. But at the same time, like, parents need to take on more responsibility of knowing what's going on in their kid's life and mitigating these things from happening. I mean, that's really, really piss poor uh, gun ownership, and it's just not being responsible, and it makes us all look bad. Whereas, the majority of us are safe, we're secure. Like, if we have kids around, we're locking up our firearms, we're not leaving loaded guns out. The majority of us are doing those things. We're constantly thinking of those things because we want to be safe, we want to keep others safe, and we want to, continue to enjoy our rights to own and carry firearms. And these are the reasons, or these are the things that these politicians use to try to, push gun bans. And unfortunately, we've had more and more shootings recently that's involving ARs, and and I have my theory on some of that, given some of the shootings that have occurred, but I won't go down that rabbit hole today. But it's just it's just really irresponsible for these individuals to not um, you know take further precautions, especially when you know that you have an individual in your household that's having issues, and you need to safeguard not only that individual, whether it be a child or an adult living with you, but also the public, because you just don't know what can happen nowadays. And I mean, time and time again, I've dealt with individuals on calls where they've gotten hold of firearms when they should have had no access to it. And that goes a lot of times back on the owner that had the ability to secure these weapons. And it's just, it's just, I don't understand it, because it's just giving them more and more fuel to try to ban these weapons. And the mass majority of us, like I said, are law abiding. We don't want to do any harm to anybody. We just want to enjoy our rights to, own various firearms. So with that, that's pretty much all I have for now. Um, Hopefully more information will come out in the future to explain maybe why he did this. And I mean, hopefully we can. The unfortunate thing is we're not taking into account. We're not asking the right questions of, we're not laying blame where it needs to be laid, is at the feet of the individual, not the weapon. Also, were these individuals medicated? A lot of times you hear that they were medicated, while they were seeking, therapy for this, and they were medicated for this. Does that have anything to do with it? More than likely. There's a lot of side effects with a lot of this stuff. And yeah, so we need to start asking those questions, but unfortunately, we don't. We continue to blame the weapon. We continue to want to ban that. It's not going to do a thing. It's not going to do a single thing. You already have millions and millions of weapons, millions and millions of just ARs out in the public, and they're not going anywhere. So we got to take other measures to, make sure that not only we're safe, but the public is safe as well, and our loved ones too. So, like I said, that's pretty much all I have for now.